I wasn't planning on reviewing this musical, but then you guys said that you would really like to hear my thoughts on it because you're unsure if you're gonna go and check it out. So here I am delivering on that promise and doing a review for Kiss Me Kate, which I've seen a few weeks ago at the Barbican. The main reason why I didn't know if I should or shouldn't review this is because I guess my thoughts about it were a little bit split. I had a great time seeing it and I enjoyed myself, but maybe it's just not the musical that I love and the story that necessarily excites me, and I love to share good stuff with you here. So let's just dive into why Kiss Me Kate is good and why it's maybe less so. If you haven't heard of Kiss Me Kate before, this is a musical written by Cole Porter and is one of those golden age musicals, which is a style of musicals that was really popular in between 1930s and 1960s. This is basically where the genre of musical theater has come to life in the way and shape and form as we know today. When it comes to Kiss Me Kate, this was written in 1948 and this has become one of the most popular works of his. And this musical is the first musical ever that has received Tony Award for the best musical. When you look at it from that perspective, it is definitely a classic which everyone who is into musical theater knows of or should see. And I'm one of those people, I'm really into musical theater, but I kind of never came across this musical that was in the West End when I was into going to shows, and I never had a chance to see it previously. So this is the first time that I've listened to the soundtrack, that I've gone to see the story, and to be fair, I went into it a little bit blind. I didn't really know what it is about. From the title, you can guess that it's some sort of a love story, right? But this is one of those musicals that is based on a play within a play, and the whole plot evolves around Fred and Lily, who are two people who were previously married, and they're both actors, and now they have separated, but they're brought together now in the story production of The Taming of the Shrew by Shakespeare. The whole plot of this musical is around the two of them and the rest of the cast trying to put on The Taming of the Shrew for the audiences, and there are a lot of different things that happen within it, such as one of the members from the production is a gambling addict and basically he gets into a lot of debt, and then two gangsters come to threaten him and get the money, but then they actually start threatening Fred, who is the key character, and the two of them get incorporated into the plot in a really funny way. So long story short, this is a love story between Fred and Lily, but also mirrored in the Taming of the Shrew narrative. And the reason why this story doesn't really sit well with me is because it is very much an outdated narrative about women, marriage, relationships, and it's really hard to make this musical fit into something modern or new, because just the premise of The Taming of the Shrew is that there is this bad behaved woman who needs to be tamed by her suitor to become a better woman for him by like using all these different methods of torture to kind of like make her become better. And you can see how this already has no place within the modern audiences and the modern narrative, but also it is a classic with a lot of great numbers, so I can totally see the temptation to put this on stage. So how did they cope with this outdated narrative in the story to present it to the new audiences? This production is directed by Bartlett Sher, and in some ways it really cleverly addresses these issues by making it more of a comic relief in a sense, and it just puts it in a very funny and amusing narrative where it is clearly implied that this is ironic and that everything that is happening is for the purposes of comedic effect. And just the whole way that the play is set up is very much like a work in progress. You can see the things that are happening behind the stage, in their changing rooms, then on the stage. So there's like a very clever way that all of this seems just like a show, and also the moments that are a little bit more controversial and the songs that are a bit more controversial, they're told through this prism of like, we know that this is not the way that things are, and let's just make fun of it in ways that when Fred's character Petruccio has to whip his woman Kate, then the whip is not working or something like that. So there are a lot of those like funny elements that have been incorporated to really relieve this production of outdatedness of this piece. But I think like what this production has that it's gonna attract a lot of people into the theater is a couple of amazing names. Not a couple, quite a few actually. So my reason why I wanted to see Kiss Me Kate so badly, apart from it being a classic, is Adrian Dunbar. He is someone that I know from Line of Duty. I really loved that show and I watched him in there, and I really did not know that he could be a person that I can see on stage in a musical, and up until now that was not possible because this is his musical debut. This is the first time that he's singing, the first time that he's in a show like this, and I think it's pretty special seeing an established actor like him trying a completely new art form for him, and especially in a fairly big production. Another person on the bill is Stephanie J. She is a Broadway diva. She's the person who has received plenty of awards, been in plenty of shows on Broadway, and just being able to see her in this production is worth it because her voice, her stage presence, her acting is everything that you want to see and more. And even in a production like this, which is really hard to navigate because of all these challenges of the original material, she still manages to shine and she still manages to deliver these numbers with such conviction and with a lot of great additional layer to the meaning of the song. So with these two amazing stars in the leading roles of Fred and Lily, you might be wondering who else you can see. And if you're a fan of musical theater, then Charlie Stamp is definitely the name that is gonna pique your interest. He is someone who's been nominated for an Olivia Award for Crazy for You, and he's just an amazing actor with even better dancing routines. He's such a delight to watch. I was seeing him in Crazy for You and I loved every second of it. So if you like Charlie Stamp, this is another show to go and see him. And another person to call out is Georgina Onwara. She's playing Loy Lane and Bianca in the show, and she's delivering one of the best numbers in the show, Always True to You in My Own Fashion, which has received honestly an ovation that just like lasted for a good minute or two. So as you can see from the cast, there's a lot of creative energy channeled to make this revival definitely worth it. It's one of the biggest revivals recently, and I think that this cast definitely delivers something fun and enjoyable and entertaining to watch for everyone who loves this musical or who just wants to experience this musical for the first time. There are some amazing other notable characters such as the two gangsters who are bringing a lot of humorous elements, and there's just that constant underlying funny tone that you are just tickled a little bit by everything that's happening on stage and how things are handled and who is where, and just the whole interaction and maybe the things that you can see beyond the stage which are there on purpose, which just makes things even funnier than maybe they are in the script. One of the best parts of this show is the amazing set and blocking on stage. Basically, the set is done that way that is constantly rotating, and on one side you have the backstage and on the other side is kind of the front of the stage. In the backstage you can see two changing rooms. One is Fred's, one is Lily's, and a lot of things happen in between those two rooms, but then also it's really fun how you can see them entering and exiting the stage, and how that just like adds another layer of involvement of the audience in the full story. Like I think it's very cleverly delivered, and I think when it comes to this set is like a bit more elaborate and it feels like a proper big set in a musical rather than more of a smaller or stripped down version like maybe some shows have had recently. This type of set really allowed for fantastic choreographies to be delivered, especially for the opening numbers of Act 1 and Act 2. Both of these have had amazing choreographies which involved almost everyone in the ensemble and maybe some additional also like lead cast members. It was really fantastic to see a big cast performing, and also how they used the stage and how they really made space for all of this coming to life in a very engaging and fiery fashion. Too Darn Hot, which is the opening number of Act 2, alongside Always True to You in My Own Fashion, are two of my favorite parts of the show, and I think that they were the ones where people really felt like they are part of a big revival production which deserves their attention. This is less related to the show and more related to the environment because this revival is happening at the Barbican Centre, and Barbican is one of my favorite places in London. It has so much soul, which is really funny to say for such a brutalist building in the city. The theatre at the Barbican Centre is beautiful. It has really special vibe and it's different to the West End theatres, and I think because of that also I really enjoyed seeing the show at the Barbican Centre rather than on the West End. So this is just like a slight side note that if you haven't been to Barbican, if you haven't seen any shows at the Barbican, I think that this is a good show to check out there. I wasn't ready to invest too much into this this show in terms of the money. So I paid my ticket between like 30 and 40 pounds. So I was sitting on the balcony or like the upper circle section. So there was one bar in front of me, but genuinely like it was good view. I think because Barbican has such a big stage and it's a big auditorium, it's a place where kind of like wherever you sit, you will have a decent view unless you're really to the side and then like one side is completely cut off. It was also interesting to see a slightly more older demographic for this show in terms of the audiences. There were people who really had love for this show from years back when they maybe saw it for the first time or something like that. So it was a really nice mix of people who came to see the show, which really suggests that Kiss Me Kate does have a place in hearts of some musical theater lovers. But when it comes to my overall impression of this musical, I think it's worth seeing. I don't think that this is the musical per se that I would want to go and see again. I don't think the story maybe appeals to me as much to go and check it out again. But this production has something very special, and that is firstly the cast. I think all of the cast members, especially the 4 leads, are incredible and totally worth seeing together. So if you like any of these actors, I think solely because of that, it's worth going and checking them out. The other thing, it's amazing set and how the whole story is put together, and I think that was really interesting to see. And there's definitely a uniqueness to this show that comes from the aspect of its execution. And I would say the third thing is also choreographies, and just generally the blocking on stage was really interesting and exciting, and I think it's different to maybe some other shows that I have seen in the past 6 months or so. I hope this review was helpful, but if you're looking for some other suggestions, then check out this playlist which has the latest shows that I have seen on the West End.